Hey, welcome back. Super excited for this deep dive. We're going deep on product-led growth, or PLG for short. Where the product itself is so good it practically sells itself. You already sent me a stack of sources on this, articles, book chapters, even a YouTube interview. So clearly you're ahead of the curve. But the software world changes fast. So let's unpack this together and see what we can really learn.
It's great to be back.
You have this amazing ability to see the big picture and the strategies within PLG that most people just miss. Our mission today, beyond just understanding what PLG is, we need to figure out the biggest takeaways that you can actually use. Are there any red flags you should be watching for in your own work based on what these experts are saying? And the most exciting part, can we use these sources to peek into the future of PLG?
Let's do.
Okay, let's start by acknowledging the elephant in the room. Or as this PDF, Product-Led Growth, How to Build a Product That Sells Itself, puts it, the tsunami.
Yeah.
The old way of selling software is, well, failing. Big time.
Yeah, it's getting swept away.
That same PDF cites stats from Perfitwell that customer acquisition costs are up over 55%. And get this, people are less willing to pay for features compared to a few years ago. That's not sustainable if your whole business relies on sales calls and demos before anyone even tries your product.
It really isn't. The reason behind this is fascinating. That PDF also mentions Forrester research showing that 3 out of 4 B2B buyers would rather teach themselves about a product than talk to a salesperson.
That's huge. It completely changes how we think about buying and selling.
For sure.
So no more drawn-out sales pitches. It's all about letting the customer explore and experience the value for themselves. That's where product-led growth comes in, right?
Exactly. The product becomes the primary growth engine. You create an experience so good it speaks for itself and naturally attracts customers.
Now this sounds amazing, but is PLG always the right answer? Wes Bush, in the chapter Choose Your Weapon, from his book Product-Led Growth, How to Build a Product That Sells Itself, gives us a framework called MOAT to help figure that out. One of the key factors in that framework is what Bush calls ocean conditions. It's all about determining whether you're swimming in a crowded market with established competitors, a red ocean, or if you're creating an entirely new market, a blue ocean.
I love that. It's like deciding if you're diving into shark-infested waters or charting a course to uncharted territory.
Yeah.
The approach to growth differs significantly depending on the ocean you're in. For example, if you're creating a new market, that blue ocean, you might actually need a sales team initially to educate people about what you're even doing. But even then, Butch argues if your product delivers value quickly, PLG can absolutely work. Think of a product that's intuitive, easy to use, and solves a problem people are aware of that haven't had a solution for before. Now in the red ocean, where you're fighting for market share against existing players, PLG can be a game changer. Offering a free trial or freemium model lets potential customers experience the product's value before committing to a purchase.
It's all about reducing that customer acquisition cost we talked about earlier. Instead of spending a fortune on convincing people to buy something they don't understand, you let the product prove its worth. However, let's be realistic. Not every product is made for PLG. For example, imagine launching a specialized CRM software designed exclusively for real estate agents with a high price tag. Would a freemium version make sense?
Probably not. The MO8 framework would categorize this as a differentiated growth strategy. Focusing on a niche market and a higher price point often means that free trials and demos are more effective than freemium. They allow you to showcase specific features and value propositions relevant to your target audience without diluting the perceived value.
So the key takeaway here is that PLG isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. It's about aligning your growth strategy with your product and the market you're operating in. Now let's move on to a topic close to every business owner's heart: pricing, and how to avoid simply guessing how much to charge for your product. This Medium article you shared really hits home. It talks about a common struggle: understanding the relationship between value and pricing. We know we should charge more, but how do we determine what our product is genuinely worth? That article had a line that really resonated with me. This chart really caught my eye. I feel the need to add screenshots and pictures for each item to better think of this. It's so true. There's so much advice out there on pricing, but it rarely feels practical or applicable.
Bush breaks down 4 common pricing strategies in his book, and he starts with the one he hates the most: best judgment pricing. Essentially, it's pricing based on a hunch.
Oh, so if you're having a slow month, just slash prices?
Right.
Easy, right?
Yeah.
But seriously, that's not a sustainable strategy.
Exactly. What we should strive for, especially in the PLG world, is value-based pricing. This means figuring out what customers are willing to pay based on the problem your product solves for them.
Which begs the question, how do we actually determine that value? It feels like some mystical concept.
Let's ground this in a story from Bush's book about a marketing director named Marco from a company called Funnel Cake. Marco dreaded the quarterly task of crunching numbers to report on his team's performance.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. Number crunching isn't exactly the most exciting task.
For sure. Using Marco's story, we can illustrate the three types of value Bush outlines. First, you have functional value, the most straightforward. For Marco, it's the time saved, or potentially the revenue gain, by using Funnel Cake software to generate those reports instead of doing it manually.
That's a tangible, quantifiable benefit?
Then there's emotional value. For Marco, it's the relief of not having to do a dreaded task leading to peace of mind that he's willing to pay for.
Peace of mind is a powerful motivator. And finally, there's social value. This is how using a product makes you look better to your boss or team. So in Marco's case, using Funnel Cake to generate insightful reports quickly positions him as strategic and proactive, potentially even leading to a promotion.
It's not just about getting the job done. It's about how using the product impacts your professional image and standing. And this highlights an important point. B2B buying isn't purely rational. Research from Google and CEB, cited in Bush's book, shows that B2B brands actually trigger stronger emotions than B2C brands.
Really? You'd think it would be the other way around.
The reality is, even in business decisions are influenced by emotions like trust, confidence, and even excitement. This understanding can give you a huge advantage when crafting your PLG strategy.
So we've identified the types of value, but how do we actually figure out the specific value our product offers? It can be awkward to ask people how much they'd pay for something.
That's a great question and a valid concern. The Medium article actually addresses this very point, quoting someone who says, "My issue is that this is so hard to ask, people will hardly reply to this."
That is a relatable struggle.
But Bush offers some practical methods in his book. One is a subjective analysis, where you start with your assumptions of the value metrics and test those assumptions through conversations with customers.
So it's all about having a starting point and refining it based on real-world feedback.
Right. Another method is more data-driven. It involves analyzing what your best and worst customers are already doing in your product to understand which features or outcomes truly drive value.
This is great. But once you've figured out your value, how do you communicate it in a way that actually converts free users into paying customers?
It's like walking into a store where every price tag is blank and you have to ask for the price of each item individually. It's annoying and inefficient. That's exactly what sales-led pricing can feel like. PLG, on the other hand, is all about clear upfront pricing that passes what Bush calls the 5-second test.
Yeah.
People instantly understand what they're getting and how much it costs.
It has to be clear and easy to understand. I remember in that YouTube interview, Wes Bush talked about helping clients who were actually too generous with their free plans. They were giving away so much that it was hard to convince people to upgrade.
Exactly. Craig Walker from Dialpad also touched upon this, saying that making your free product too good can backfire. You need to find a balance between being generous enough to attract users while still leaving room to upsell to a paid plan that offers even more value.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
But what about more complex products that take time to set up and understand? Doesn't that make PLG more difficult?
That's a common concern, but Bush addresses it with his bowling alley framework. It's about creating an onboarding experience that's like a smooth, straight bowling lane free of random obstacles.
Imagine trying to bowl, but bumpers keep popping up in random places. It would be incredibly frustrating. Your onboarding should be designed to guide the user seamlessly towards that initial quick win that demonstrates the value of your product.
He even suggests mapping out your onboarding flow, color-coding each step to determine what's essential, what can be skipped, and what can be removed entirely. It's a fantastic way to eliminate unnecessary friction points.
This deep dive is not just about the product itself, it's about the entire user experience. Imagine signing up for something and then hearing nothing from the company. It's not a good feeling, and it doesn't inspire confidence in the product.
You're absolutely right. That's where conversational bumpers come into play. These are strategically timed emails, notifications, in-app messages, anything that gently nudges users at key points in their journey. It's like having a friendly guide who offers helpful advice and support without being intrusive or overwhelming.
And this is where a lot of companies make a big mistake. They bombard new users with sales pitches way too early. The key is to deliver value first and build trust before even mentioning upgrading.
Bush outlines 3 different conversational bumper tracks in his book, each triggered by specific user actions. It's a practical framework you can apply to your PLG strategy. And remember, even after someone becomes a paying customer, the journey isn't over.
PLG isn't just about getting someone to sign up. It's about fostering a lasting relationship built on trust and continuous value delivery.
That's an excellent point. And with that, let's move on to the next crucial aspect of PLG, keeping those customers engaged and happy, which ultimately fuels sustainable growth. It's interesting. When we talk about growth engines in business, it's easy to get fixated on acquiring new customers. But these sources really emphasize that true sustainable growth often comes from maximizing the value you get from the customers you already have.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
like tending a garden. You've planted all these amazing seeds, but if you're so focused on expanding the garden, you might forget to water and nurture the plants you already have. In the business world, that nurturing translates to increasing the average revenue per user, or ARPU.
Right.
That makes sense. But before we dive into how to increase ARPU, let's clarify why our listeners should even care about this metric. What does it tell us about the health of a business?
Well, ARPU is a powerful indicator of the effectiveness of your monetization strategy. It essentially reveals how well you're converting users into paying customers and how much value each customer generates for your business.
So if your ARPU is low, it can signal a few things. Perhaps you're giving away too much for free. Your pricing doesn't align with the value you provide. Or maybe you're attracting the wrong kind of customers, ones who aren't likely to upgrade or stick around.
Exactly.
Understanding your ARPU is crucial for making smart decisions about your marketing, sales, and even product development.
For sure.
Okay, so let's say our listener has looked at their ARPU and sees room for improvement. What are some concrete steps they can take to start moving the needle in the right direction?
The first step, and this might sound familiar, is to revisit those value metrics we discussed earlier. Remember, in a product-led business, your pricing should directly reflect the value your customers are getting.
It's not about arbitrarily assigning a price. It's about understanding what that price unlocks for the customer.
And this is where pricing tiers come in. You want to offer different options that cater to various needs and budgets, but you also don't want to overwhelm people with too many choices. Bush talks about the paradox of choice in his book, where having too many options can paralyze people, making them less likely to buy anything.
Oh, I've totally experienced that. Like
Yeah.
trying to pick a movie on a streaming service, there's so many options that I end up just scrolling endlessly and never actually watching anything.
It's the same with pricing. You want to offer enough choices to cater to different needs, but not so many that it becomes overwhelming. A good rule of thumb is to have 3 or 4 tiers that clearly highlight the increasing value at each level.
That's helpful. Now, what about upselling and cross-selling? Those seem like obvious ways to increase ARPU, but how do you do it without feeling pushy or annoying?
The key is to be strategic and customer-centric. Think of it this way: if your product is genuinely solving a problem for your customers, they're more likely to be open to additional features or services that help them achieve even better results.
It's like going to a restaurant and having a fantastic meal. You might be more inclined to order dessert or a special coffee
Yeah.
because you already trust the chef and know they deliver quality.
Precisely. And that's why delivering value up front is so important. Once you've built that trust and demonstrated that you understand your customers' needs, offering them additional ways to get even more value from your product feels like a natural progression.
It's not about being a pushy salesperson. It's about being a helpful guide who says, hey, I see you're getting great results with this teacher. Did you know we also offer this other feature that could take things to the next level?
Exactly. And the beauty of PLG is that you can often integrate these upsell and cross-sell opportunities right into the product itself. For example, if a user consistently hits certain usage limits, you can have a notification pop up that says, hey, it looks like you're really getting a lot of value out of this feature. Would you like to upgrade to a plan that gives you more?
That's a great example. It's not interrupting their workflow, just gently suggesting a way to enhance their experience.
Okay.
And it highlights another crucial point about ARPU optimization. It's an ongoing process, not a one-time fix. You should constantly analyze data, listen to your customers, and refine your pricing and packaging to ensure you're always delivering maximum value.
It's all about continuous improvement. But let's face it, even with the best product, perfect pricing, and brilliant upsell opportunities, there's one thing that can completely derail your growth churn.
Yes, the dreaded churn. It's the silent killer of SaaS businesses. You can be acquiring new customers like crazy, but if they're leaving just as fast, you're essentially on a treadmill, working hard but not making any real progress.
So let's talk about churn. What is it exactly, and why is it such a big deal in the PLG world?
At its core, churn is the percentage of customers who cancel or don't renew their subscription during a given period. But it's not just about the number of customers you lose, it's also about the revenue that goes with them.
Losing one small customer might not be a big deal. but losing a large, high-paying customer can significantly impact your bottom line. Exactly. That's why it's essential to look at both customer churn and revenue churn to get a complete picture of how this is impacting your business.
Okay, but here's what I've always found confusing about churn. There are so many different ways to calculate it. How do you know which method is the right one?
That's a valid point, and honestly, there's no single right answer. The key is to choose a method that makes sense for your business and stick with it consistently so you can track your progress over time. But there's one thing that all the experts agree on, regardless of how you calculate it.
What that?
You can't ignore it.
Makes sense. Burying your head in the sand won't solve the problem. But what if you've already looked at your churn numbers and they're not looking good? What are some practical steps you can take to start reducing churn and keep those customers happy?
The first step is understanding why people are churning. Are they not getting value from your product? Are they experiencing technical difficulties? Is your pricing too high? You need to diagnose the problem before you can find the right solution. And this is where customer feedback becomes absolutely essential.
Absolutely. You need to actively reach out to your customers. Ask them what they love about your product, what they'd like to see improved, and why they might be considering leaving.
Okay, so you've gathered all this feedback and you've identified some common themes. What are some practical strategies for addressing those issues and reducing churn?
One of the most effective things you can do is improve your onboarding experience. Remember that bowling alley framework we talked about earlier? It's all about guiding users to that initial quick win as quickly and smoothly as possible.
If people aren't experiencing value within the first few days or weeks of using your product, they're much more likely to churn. So you want to ensure your onboarding process is clear, concise, and focused on guiding users toward those key actions that showcase your product's value. And those conversational bumpers we discussed earlier can be a great way to nudge users in the right direction and keep them engaged.
It's like having a virtual guide gently leading them through the process and making sure they don't get lost or frustrated.
Right. Another key strategy for reducing churn is building a strong customer success team. These are the people dedicated to helping your customers succeed with your product, answering their questions, resolving issues, and being their advocates.
It's like having a dedicated cheering squad rooting for your customers' success
Yeah,
and ensuring they feel heard and valued.
exactly. And this is especially important in the PLG model, where customers often interact directly with the product without much handholding from sales or support. You want to ensure they have the resources they need to succeed, even if they're not actively asking for help.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about customers who are already churning? Is there anything you can do to win them back?
You might be surprised, but often there is. And this is where a well-designed cancellation process can be a huge asset.
Wait, what? Are you saying there's a good way to let someone cancel their subscription?
Absolutely. It's about understanding their reasons for leaving and seeing if there's anything you can do to address their concerns. Maybe they just need a little more guidance on how to use a particular feature. Or they're facing a temporary budget constraint.
So instead of just saying, okay, bye, you try to have a real conversation
Hmm.
and see if there's a way to salvage the relationship.
Exactly. And even if you can't convince them to stay, you can still gather valuable feedback about why they're leaving, which can help you improve your product and reduce churn in the future.
So it's a win-win, even if they end up leaving. But let's be real. Sometimes churn is unavoidable. People's needs change, businesses evolve, and sometimes it's just not the right fit anymore.
That's true. But even in those cases, there's still a lot you can learn from churned customers. By analyzing their behavior, understanding their feedback, and iterating on your product and processes, you can minimize future churn and build a business that's truly built for sustainable growth.
It's all about learning and adapting. Now, there's one more crucial aspect of PLG that we need to cover before wrapping up this deep dive. It's often overlooked, but it can make or break your success. And that is
The team, the people behind the scenes making this PLG magic happen. You can have the best strategy in the world, but without the right people to execute it, it's all for nothing.
That's so true, and it's a recurring theme in these sources. It's not enough to simply understand PLG principles. You need a team that's aligned, empowered, and equipped to put those principles into action.
It's like having a high-performance race car, but no skilled driver to take it to the finish line. So how do you build a winning PLG team? What roles, skills, and mindsets should you look for?
One of those most crucial aspects is breaking down the silos that often exist between departments and traditional organizations. In a PLG company, everyone needs to be on the same page, working towards a shared goal.
So no more marketing, tossing leads over the fence to sales, and then sales blaming marketing if those leads don't convert.
It's exactly. PLG requires a much more collaborative and customer-centric approach. You need people who can think holistically about the entire customer journey, from the first interaction to becoming a loyal advocate.
Okay, so that's the big picture. But what about specific roles? Who are the key players on a PLG team?
Well, first and foremost, you need strong product people, product managers, designers, engineers. These are the folks building and iterating on the product itself, ensuring it delivers the core value that drives PLG.
It all starts with a great product. If the product isn't solving a real problem or providing a delightful experience, no amount of marketing or sales can make it successful.
Absolutely. Then you need marketers who understand how to attract, engage users in a product-led world. They're not just generating leads. They're creating content and experiences that help users discover the value of your product on their own terms.
So it's more about education and empowerment than traditional hard-selling tactics.
Right. And then you have the customer success team, the unsung heroes of PLG. They build those long-term relationships with customers, ensuring they get value and addressing any issues that arise.
Because a happy customer is a customer who's more likely to stay and recommend your product to others.
Exactly. And let's not forget about data. PLG relies heavily on data to make informed decisions about everything from product development to marketing campaigns. So having a strong data team, or at least people comfortable working with data and analytics, is essential.
It sounds like a multidisciplinary dream team, all working together to create an amazing customer experience that drives sustainable growth.
That's a great way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And here's something interesting. The skills and mindset that make someone successful in PLG are often transferable across different roles.
Yeah.
You might have a marketer who's great at understanding user behavior, and that skill could be valuable in product development or customer success as well.
So it's not just about filling specific job titles. It's about finding people who are curious, adaptable, and passionate about creating value for customers.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important point about building a PLG team. You need to foster a culture of experimentation and continuous learning. Because PLG isn't a set-it-and-forget-it strategy, right?
Right. It's about constantly iterating testing and refining your approach based on data and customer feedback. You need a team that's comfortable with ambiguity, willing to take risks, and eager to learn from both successes and failures.
It's like the saying, fail fast and learn even faster.
Exactly. And that brings me to one final point about PLG teams. It's not just about skills and experience, it's also about mindset.
What kind of mindset are we talking about?
A growth mindset. These are people who are constantly seeking ways to improve, who are open to new ideas, and who challenge the status quo. They're not afraid to ask why, and they're not satisfied with doing things the way they've always been done.
They're the opposite of those who say, but we've always done it this way.
Exactly. That kind of thinking is a roadblock in the world of PLG. You need people who are energized by change, who embrace challenges, and who are always striving to do things better.
It sounds like building a PLG team is more than just hiring people with the right resumes. It's about finding individuals who share a common vision, who are passionate about creating value for customers, and who are excited to be part of a team that's pushing boundaries.
Absolutely. And when you find those people and create a culture that empowers them to do their best work, that's when the magic happens. That's when you build a product that truly sells itself and a business that's built for sustainable long-term growth.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today. From understanding the forces driving the shift to PLG, to exploring pricing strategies, onboarding frameworks, and even the importance of building a winning team, it's clear that PLG is more than just a buzzword. It's a fundamentally different way of thinking about building and growing a software business.
And the most exciting part is that it's still evolving. As technology continues to change how we live and work, the companies that embrace PLG principles will be the ones that thrive. So the challenge for our listener is to take what resonated most from this deep dive and start experimenting. Try new things, test your assumptions, and don't be afraid to fail. Because it's through that process of experimentation and learning that you'll discover what works best for your product, your market, and your team.
Remember, the most effective PLG strategies are the ones that are constantly being optimized. It's not about finding a magic formula and sticking to it rigidly. It's about being adaptable, data-driven, and always focused on delivering maximum value to your customers.
It's about building a product and a business that people genuinely love to use. That's a goal worth pursuing no matter what industry you're in.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought to ponder. The sources we explored today repeatedly emphasize that the future of PLG is about more than just building great products. It's about building great communities.
Communities of users who are passionate about your product, who are actively engaged in shaping its future, and who are spreading the word to their networks.
Exactly. So as you embark on your PLG journey, think not just about acquiring customers, but about building a tribe of loyal advocates who will help you grow your business and make a real impact.
And on that inspiring note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into product-led growth. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.